What is up, people? We are back. Justin here. We're going to get into the CD collection some more. Uh, Finally, it hasn't been a month between videos, so I'm going to try to stay on top of these. We are into the L's, and we're going to not quite finish the L's, but I got a good little stack here. Nothing new. Work, life, music, graphic design, same old shit. So let's get into it. We are listening to Viscera Infest, who I talked about at length in the last video. Amazing, fucking sick, gross gore grind band from Japan. They are fucking amazing. So, into the L's. First, I have, well, we've already done some L's, so more L's. We have two from Life Lover, Erotic and Pulver. So Life Lover was a band born out of the kind of depressive, suicidal black metal scene 10, 15 years ago. When did Pulver come out? 06. So 14 years ago. Life Lover sounds unlike any other band. And when the first one I got was Erotic, which is their second record, came out on Total Holocaust in 07. I knew that it was members of like Kim from Hypothermia was in this band, and other guys from that scene, and I expected something along the lines of depressive, suicidal black metal. And Life Lover is this like dreary, depressive, like post rock, gothy sounding music. It's unlike anything I've ever heard, and it definitely has that kind of depressive, suicidal sound to it, but it's not black metal. It's just the sound of these guys' minds melding. I don't know how to describe it. I'm going to link it below. But Erotic is their second record. It's my favorite. This is the first press on Total Holocaust. Has this really, really killer booklet. Really super thick. It's got like 20 pages full of art, and there's all the members. Really, really, really killer. So after I got Erotic, I went back and bought their first one, Pulver. This is the first press on Go to War Rex. Came out in 06. And it's as good as Erotic. It's a little underproduced sounding compared to Erotic. But it has that dreary nighttime vibe to it. Life Lover's always been one of those bands that I like to put on real late at night when I'm driving or something. It's perfect, like, mood music. I have both of these on vinyl. They, at one time, were really, really hard to come by. I have an original press of Erotic, and I think my Pulver is a repress. I'll have to check, I don't remember. But I adore those two records. They did 2 or 3 more albums after these two, and they slowly lost my interest. The last one I heard almost had this kind of chunky, like, industrial vibe to it. I didn't care for it at all. They tried to make it more metal, and what I liked about Life Lover is they're not a black metal band. It's dudes from black metal bands playing this weird, emotive, gothy, cringy, suicidal, depressive music. It's like dirty, heroin-fueled Joy Division. But several years ago, one of the guitar players died, and they ended the band. I think they've done some stuff since then, like they reformed a little bit. I'm not sure, I haven't kept up with them, but those two records are just absolutely untouchable to me. So, speaking of grossness, I have 5 CDs from Lividity. Now, I got all of these at one time in the giant trade that I did. Go back and watch my earlier videos. Several years ago, I did a giant trade with a label and got like 200 different death and grind and gore grind and porno grind CDs. A lot of it was like cut rate, no name bullshit, but there was some good stuff in there, including 5 titles from Lividity. So I've always been familiar with Lividity. I had a comp that I got in a magazine or something in the late 90s that had a Lividity track on it, so I was always familiar with them. I've always really liked Deaden. Let me show you something. Hold on. Okay, I've always really liked Deaden. I hear you guys like when I tell stories. So this is Intellectual Spew number 5. This zine came out in, I'm gonna say like 99, September, October 99, somewhere in there. It doesn't have a date in it, but 2 guys were behind this zine. One of them was a guy named Bart, and I used to talk to Bart at death metal shows in Tallahassee. That's where I started going to death metal shows. Metal Shows appears in Tallahassee, Florida in 1999. And I used to chat him up. Well, he did this zine and gave me this copy, and I have read this thing cover to cover dozens of times. In it was an article about Deaden. Read it, checked it out. I think I ended up downloading Hymns of the Sick on Audio Galaxy or something, and then eventually got the CD. I have all of Deaden stuff. I love Deaden. Well, Vaughn, that was the singer and guitar player of Deaden, is now the singer and guitar player of Lividity. I'm not sure if he's on any of these releases. I would have to look. I'm not super familiar with all of them. But Deaden led me to Lividity, and Lividity is one of these Midwestern super brutal death metal bands from the 90s. They're still going strong. They put out a fucking incredible record last year. I need to get a copy of it. But Intellectual Spew for 20 years now has been like ground zero for me. The first death metal zine I ever got. And listen to this. Number 5 of Intellectual Spew zine saw 5,000 copies printed by a small publisher's co-op. 5,000. There's not a zine out now that even comes close to printing 5,000 copies. That is unreal. And it was printed on fucking newsprint too. You can't print anything on newsprint anymore, man. This is a fucking relic. But next page after Deaden, Incantation. So I've been holding on to this zine for 20 years, and like I said, I've read it cover to cover, and I've checked out so many bands because of this back 20 years ago. Now, if anyone has Intellectual Spew 1, 2, 3, or 4, hit me up because I want them and I cannot find them. I put out there a few years ago on a forum that I was looking for the other issues of this, and lo and behold, I got an email from Bart. And he said, "Hey man, I saw your post. I vaguely remember talking to you at shows back then. It's really cool to see someone interested in the zine still." He said, "I don't have any copies of it. Number 5 was the last one." He said they were working on 6 and it never came out. But I love this zine so much, and I want the other, issues of it. Anyway, that brings us to Lividity. Lividity is this super nasty, scummy, fucking gross, perverted death metal band. The kind of shit on these records is just untouchable. The Age of Clitoral Decay. I mean, and look how fucking 90s that art is. Airbrushed fucking, biker art. Oozing vaginal discharge. Anal action wife. Stench of virginity. I mean, none more vile. So, I have The Age of Clitoral Decay. I have... This is Used, Abused, and Left for Dead, and it is still sealed. So, like I said, I don't really know all these that well. Levidity is one of those bands I will grab one of these and throw it on, and I've never really put a lot of time into learning it all. But I also have To Desecrate and Defile. Comes in a slip sleeve. I think that this is another full length. I'm going to look all this up. Then I have Till Only the Sick Remain, which is also still sealed, which, And then I have Fetish for the Sick and Live in Germany, which is still sealed. So my go-to has always been The Age of Clitoral Decay. And that record I know a little better because I listen to it more. But I need to spend some time listening to all of these Levidity CDs. But I like Levidity. I like Deaden a lot more. And the only relation there is that Deaden's singer is now in Levidity. But that's how I connect it in my mind. So anyway. Next, we have two from a band called The Living Fields. So, in the early 2000s, I started writing for a webzine, a website called deadtide.com. And Dead Tide was run by a guy named Jason. Me and Jason became, and are still now, 15 years later, very, very good friends. But this was his band. And this released the demo, The Miseries Never Cease, was just their demo. This is a CDR, but Jason's attention to detail, he did all of this layout and design. This is just printed on computer paper and he stapled it together. He put so much care into this. It's unreal. And then all of the discs are printed directly to the disc. He spent some time and effort and money in putting these together and then sold them for $5 a piece. Came out 2003, 4 songs. Really kind of melancholic death doom. Somewhere between My Dying Bride and Evoken. If I remember correctly, this version might have programmed drums on it, but I don't remember. Yeah, this one has programmed drums, and Jason plays everything, and another guy named, I don't remember his name now, sings on it. So that was their demo. Then they signed to, they put out a second demo, or an EP really. This is called, it's just The Living Fields. And it was put out on Harvester Records. You can see that? Harvester Records was Jason's record label. John John is who the singer was, from the band Monster Works. This is just a little 4-song. Technically, this was a full length. This was their first full length they put out themselves. That's right. So, by the time this came around, Jason had added a drummer. And what he would do is he would write the songs, program out all the drums, send it to the drummer who didn't live in their area. They were split all the ways. Jason was in Chicago, the drummer was in Canada, and John, the singer, is in the UK. And then the drummer would record all the drums and send it back, and Jason would record all the music to it. Now, the drummer is Chad Walls, who is most famous as being the drummer of Brodequin and Pustulated. He's a super brutal, death metal drummer. But he's also one of these guys who's just an incredible musician, and he adds so much to this Living Fields material. Now, then they signed to Candlelight and put out another full length that I don't appear to have a copy of. I always thought I did. I need to look that up, and I'm going to put the info right here about it. Jason ended up moving to Texas several years ago. I want to say that record label dealings kind of soured his taste for doing more of the living fields, and it just kind of fell to the wayside, I think. He has a really, really killer doom band now, real Black Sabbathy sounding, called Witch Crier. It's a full band. They're all based in Austin, Texas. They rehearse and play all the time, and they are fucking killer. So check them out too. Anyway, okay, on to more. We have one album by Living Sacrifice. Living Sacrifice is a band. I don't know where they were originally from. The States somewhere. This is their first, I think it's their first record. It's self-titled. Came out in 1991, Rex Records. And it is straight up Slayer worship. It sounds a lot like Slayer. But they're a Christian band. A very Christian band. And I want to say that I just bought this somewhere because it looks cool as fuck. And then did some research and found out they're a Christian band. But, no, I'll tell you. I got a comp sometime in the late 90s from Solid State Records. Tooth and Nail Records, Solid State Records are the same company. They're a Christian metal hardcore record label. And they put out a Living Sacrifice record that sounds like Earth Crisis. It's kind of heavy, somewhat melodic metal hardcore from the 90s. Then I found this, thought it was probably a different band because it looks so much different, but it's the same dudes. Now, 20 years later, almost 30 years later, they are pretty much like a nu metal band. And I don't know how many original members exist, but I looked these guys up on Metal Archives recently, and they have just made this huge circle going through all these different genres. And with the exception of how ripping this is, it's all pretty much garbage. So then we have two from the band Loathsome. We have Lepers of the Loathsome, which I think was a demo. And then we have Born from Rot, which is a full length. This band is another project of Wayne's from the MySpace days. So back in the MySpace days, there was this group of us that you know, hung out on MySpace a lot. It all kind of revolved around Razorback Records. And we would all start these bands and projects together. And, you know, Wayne was the drummer for every one of them. But Wayne recorded the drums for these. And, oh no, actually I'm wrong. So Wayne played guitar on this. And Dave, who was the guitarist in Decrepitaph, played drums. Our buddy Nev, he did all the art for these. You probably know who Nev is. He does lots of brutal death metal art. He was the singer, and then Vanessa from Razorback played bass. And I want to say, I have not listened to this in years and years and years. It's just kind of death thrashy, you know, old school death metal. The full length, I think, was the same four people. It's going on Gorehouse Productions. I do not know who that was. Probably some kid on MySpace who was like, I'll start a label, and he put this out. I don't, like I said, old school death metal. This shit was so interchangeable back then. I'm not sure, you know, I don't remember at all, like, exactly what it sounds like. So, anyway, so we're going to change the direction big time here. This is a comp called Looking for Europe. The Neo-Folk Compendium. So, this big, like, book thing. So, I got into Neo-Folk, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. And really all I know about Neo-Folk is that I really, really like Death in June. I really, really like Soul Invictus. There's a group from Minnesota called Blood and Sun that put out a record a few years ago that fucking blew me away. It was my favorite record of the year. Absolutely incredible. Neo-folk is not metal. It's, it's dudes playing, acoustic songs about the apocalypse. And this is one of those, like, mandatory things if you're getting into that kind of stuff. So I bought it. And it's tough. It's 4 discs, and there's a lot of stuff on it that I'm not crazy about, but there's some really killer stuff on it. Blood Axis and Death in June songs, Laybach, Soul Invictus is on here, Haglaz Room Dance, Of the Wand and the Moon, Boyd Rice and Non. Several things that I'm familiar with, Fire and Ice, but it's a hard listen to sit down and digest all of this. But it's one of those things that when I get in the mood and I don't really know I don't want to just listen to Death in June over and over again, I'll put this on, especially like if I'm doing something else or I'm driving. But it's a good jump off point if you're interested in that kind of stuff. If you're not, it's hard. It's a hard sell to you. So if you're here for metal, stick around. Okay. Lord Gore. Holy shit, I love Lord Gore. So, Resickened was their second record. It's my favorite. It's the first thing I ever heard from them. My second favorite Relapse. My second favorite Razorback Records release. Lord Gore is just heavy, brutal, gross, gore death metal. And real tongue-in-cheek, full of fucking killer samples. There's a sample on Resickened from this movie called Happiness that had Philip Seymour Hoffman in it. And it is so fucking vile. And if you know the scene in the movie the sample comes from, it fits what this kind of music is about so well, if that makes sense. It's not something I want to explain, but I fucking love Lord Gore. The Autophagus Orgy is their first record. I'm not as familiar with it. I bought it first, came across it somewhere, and I knew that I had a CDR of this one for years, but I knew that, okay, I like Lord Gore, so I bought this one. I'm not as crazy about it. I never reach for it. I always go straight to Resickened. They have some new stuff out. I haven't listened to it yet. They have a new demo tape, and are working on a new full length, I think, or it's done. I know that Charlie from Ascended Dead and Golgotha and a bunch of other bands, Funeral, he recorded it. So I need to check it out. I really, really like Lord Gore. But man, Resickened is so fucking sick. Alright, then we have a CD by a band called Lordamore. I don't know anything about this. Ended up with it through a trade. Like I've said before, trade stuff, I would always keep a copy when I had a distro. I think this is some type of black metal. It's kind of emotive looking, kind of somber looking, I don't know. Descending Toward Damnation. Not familiar. Don't know. Lordamore. You know what it is, let's talk about it. So then, a band I am very fond of, Loss. So Loss is a funeral doom band from Nashville, Tennessee. They are very good friends of mine. I've known them for many, many years now. I'm friends with Mike, their singer, kind of main guy, and John, the bass player, and Tim, the guitar player, and Jay, the drummer. I know them all. I've done the layouts for both of their full lengths. I met Mike just via being into the same shit and having mutual friends on Facebook, and we became friends, and we hit it off. We like the same dumb shit. Along the way, me and him and another guy named Jake, who's a part of their circle, we formed a project called Ritual, with 2 A's because we were different. And it's this kind of black, doomy, sludgy thing. We got together one weekend, or 2 weekends, and wrote and recorded a couple of songs and put out a 7-inch on Parasitic Records. And we had every intention of doing more, and it just didn't happen. It was hard to do. I work good long distance with some people. They were the kind of people that we needed to sit down in person and do it, and we just couldn't ever get together to do it anymore. Anyway, some of you may be familiar with the Ritual thing. But Loss has been around for, probably over 15 years now. And they're really dark, heavy, despondent funeral doom. Like a slower, gloomier Evoken or Thurgothan or, Skepticism, bands like of that ilk. Lots of clean guitar, lots of really emotive, just depressive sounding shit. So this is their first EP. It's called Life Without Hope, Death Without Reason. I'm pretty sure there's several versions of this album. It's 5 songs. This is the Deathgasm version, and I don't know how the hell I ended up with 2 versions. They appear to be slightly different, like the printing is the colors are a little different. It's probably just 2 separate printings of the same, 2 pressings of the same release. This one has been opened. This one has a piece of tape over it, so it won't open. So I probably got it somehow, realized I had another one, never opened the second one, I don't know. But really, really killer. This set the stage for what they were to become. Then they put out Despond in 2011. I can't believe it's been that long. So Despond is their magnum opus. It's 10 songs, and the way they did this, they did it on both their albums. All 4 members contributed some kind of interstitial. So each member sat down alone and made a piece of music, whether it be an instrumental or something with samples or something with vocals. It's just a little short piece of interlude that they created. So you see the different sides of their psyches throughout the record. Split up these long, just trance-inducing, depressive, gloomy funeral doom songs. Mike sings with this really, really deep, almost gurgly vocal. This, I don't want to say guttural, but super deep. And there's some guest clean singing on it. But man, their guitar work on these records is so intricate and so deliberate. They just, oh man, it's beautiful. So I did all of the layout for this record. I worked really closely with them with their ideas. Each piece of art was created for them by a guy named Richard Friend, and I worked with Richard closely to make sure the art was all to the right specs. And Richard, through us talking, I found out that he's a comic book artist. He's worked for Marvel and DC. That's what he does full time. He draws fucking Batman for a living. I'm sure that if you're into comics, you know Richard Friend. But I really liked this artwork. Sweetheart started talking, and he ended up doing, I commissioned him to do the artwork for Father Befould's Revulsion of Seraphic Grace record. So that's pretty cool. And he ended up doing a few more things for metal bands. Mitochondrion did a cover for them. But he's one of those things, he's real busy, and it's hard for him to spend so much time. All of this is drawn with pen and ink. He draws it all out in pencil, and then he takes like a little brush and black India ink and colors it all in. It's incredible. He's a true artist. But Despond, when I got this album, when I finally got it, I listened to it over and over and over and over. You just sink into it. It is so gloomy and so just darkly beautiful. So, they sent me copies. I opened one, listened to a bunch. I've still got a sealed copy. I think I've got a couple LP copies of it. But then, a couple years ago, year before last, I guess, 2017, again, I did all of the layout and design for their second record, Horizonless. And this artwork was done by Adam Burke. You'll probably see a lot of his stuff lately. He just did a new Vermeer album. He's been doing lots of album covers lately, and all of his stuff is like super legit oil painting. So Adam Burke is awesome. But with Horizonless, I went with kind of a funeral announcement look. What I did was I did all of the layout on paper, and then I printed it all, and then I scanned it. I aged the paper, and I scanned it back in. So what you're looking at is a real like scan of the printed documents. It's pretty cool. It has this really aged, weathered look to it. And then I don't know if we can see it on the video. This is a picture of them at the Parthenon in Nashville. But then I took the art. We have this spacey, cosmic scene here, and I put it in the background behind them at their request, and it worked really, really well. I think it was cool as fuck. Anyway, Horizonless is every bit of the album that Despond is. It is just dreary. God damn, it's dreary. And again, when I got it, they actually sent me an unmastered copy of it months before it came out, and I would listen to it while I was working on the layout. And it's one of those records that you listen to so much that it puts you in a certain place emotionally, and then you know that like if you listen to it again, it's going to put you there again. You might not want to be there. So I haven't listened to it in a long time. Absolutely love Lost. I'm not sure what they're doing anymore. I think life caught up with a few of the guys. It's hard for them to get together and make stuff happen. I ran into Tim, their guitar player, at MDF year before last, and we talked for a long time, hung out. It was really good to see him. But Lost is fucking incredible, man. Just, if you like Funeral Doom, you can't go wrong with that shit. Alright, last one here. I have the soundtrack to Lost Highway. I bought it in like a Goodwill or something. I don't think there's anything on here worth a fuck. It's got a bunch of the like Angelo Badalamenti like score pieces, and I really like his stuff. But I remember I posted a picture of this on Instagram when I bought it, and a buddy of mine was like, "Oh, I've got that." I think he said it's embarrassing. So I've never even put it in. It's just one of those things that I saw. Ooh, that's $1. I want it. So I like David Lynch movies. Anyway, that's it. This is a long video. I've got to edit a lot of me flubbing out and me getting up to change music out. So we'll pare it down from where it's at. But hope you enjoyed this one. Let's talk about these albums. Comment, like, subscribe, turn on the bell notification, tell your friends. I want to get up closer to 1,000 subs. I'm going to keep doing these as quickly as I can, as often as I can. And let's talk about this stuff, and I'll see you guys later.